Stop talking to be heard. Start speaking to be remembered. Most people talk without thinking, but the smart ones? They speak with precision, purpose, and power. Every word they use is a weapon. Every pause is calculated. Every sentence drives emotion, respect, and influence. In this audiobook, you'll learn how to speak smart, how to master the psychology behind powerful communication, so you no longer chase attention. It comes to you automatically. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Control your words. Control the room. Words are power. They build respect. They build trust. They build authority. Or they destroy it. When you speak, people feel your energy before they hear your message. Your tone, your pace, your control. It tells the world who's in charge. That's why smart communicators think before they speak. They don't talk to fill silence. They talk to create movement. Every word you release has energy behind it. That energy can calm a storm or start one. It can win a room or lose it instantly. That's why you must learn this truth. When you control your words, you control the outcome. Say it again, because this will shape everything you do next. When you control your words, you control the outcome. Most people speak reactively. They speak from emotion, not intention. They speak to defend themselves, not to direct the moment. They rush to respond. They argue to be right. They speak without listening. And that's why they lose power every time they open their mouths. Smart communicators do the opposite. They speak slowly. They speak clearly. They use silence as a weapon. They let others reveal themselves through noise while they stay grounded in control. That's the key, control. Control your words, and the world begins to see you differently. They see calm. They see certainty. They see someone who doesn't need to prove, because truth doesn't need to shout. Let me give you a real-world example. A team is arguing in a meeting. Tension is rising. Voices are overlapping. Everyone's trying to dominate the moment. Then the leader, calm, composed, quiet, lifts his head and says one short, firm sentence. Let's pause. We're not solving anything by shouting. That's it. No anger. No emotion. Just control. And suddenly, silence fills the room. Everyone looks at him. Why? Because control commands attention. It wasn't about volume. It wasn't about dominance. It was about emotional mastery. He spoke from stillness, not from stress. That's why people listened. You have to understand something critical. Every time you open your mouth, you reveal your level of self-control. If you react instantly, you show weakness. If you pause and think, you show strength. It's that simple. When you pause, you're sending a silent message. I decide when and how to respond. I am not controlled by you. That pause is your power. That pause gives weight to your words. That pause makes others question their own emotional chaos. You have a choice. You can speak to express emotion, or you can speak to project intelligence. You can be loud, or you can be listened to, but not both. When you control your words, you also control your image. People start associating your name with calm confidence. They know when you speak, it matters. Think about it. Who gets remembered? The one who rants? Or the one who speaks few, powerful words that change the direction of the room? It's not about saying more. It's about saying what matters. You don't need to impress anyone with how much you know. You don't need their permission to speak less. You just need to make every word intentional. That's the discipline most people lack. Here's what you can do starting today. First, slow down. Before you answer, take a breath. Give yourself a 2-second pause. That's not hesitation, that's control. It shows you're thoughtful, not reactive. Second, simplify your words. Use clarity, not complexity. The smartest communicators don't use big words to sound intelligent. They use simple words that hit hard. Third, remove filler language. Cut the like and you know. Those are signs of uncertainty. Replace them with silence. Silence sounds more confident than nervous talk ever will. Fourth, focus on tone. Lower your tone slightly when speaking seriously. Speak from your chest, not your throat. Calm tone equals mental authority. Fifth, end sentences cleanly. Don't trail off. Don't mumble. End your sentences with purpose, like you mean it. These small changes compound. They make people lean in when you talk. They make people trust you more. They make you look in control, even when you're still figuring things out inside. Let's be clear, this isn't about manipulation. This is about mastery. You're mastering yourself so you can lead others. You're mastering your emotions so they don't master you. You're mastering your words so they don't betray you. That's what smart communication really is, emotional intelligence in action. Because when you let your emotions run your mouth, you lose credibility. But when you let your awareness run your words, you gain influence. That's the shift, from emotional reaction to psychological control. From noise to precision. From trying to be heard to making others feel your presence. Think of your voice as a tool. You can use it to build or destroy. You can use it to calm a situation or inflame it. Every leader, every influencer, every powerful communicator, they all understand this one law. People don't follow the loudest voice. They follow the most controlled one. Control your words, and you'll never need to demand attention again. It will come naturally. Here's what most don't realize. Your silence speaks too. When you choose not to respond instantly, you show strength. When you withhold unnecessary comments, you project discipline. Sometimes, the smartest thing you can say is nothing. That's not weakness, that's mastery. You're not avoiding confrontation, you're choosing timing. You're saying, I won't waste my energy proving a point to someone who can't understand it. That's power. That's emotional control in motion. So from this point forward, treat every word like currency. Don't spend it carelessly. Spend it with purpose. Spend it only when it multiplies your influence. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs clarity. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You need to be precise. When you control your words, you control the room. When you control the room, you control the outcome. That's the discipline that separates amateurs from leaders. That's the shift that turns talkers into influencers. You have a choice. You can speak reactively like everyone else, or you can speak strategically like the few who lead. You can waste your words, or you can weaponize them. It's not about perfection. It's about control. It's not about how much you say. It's about how much impact your words create. Remember this, every sentence you speak is shaping how people perceive you. Speak less. Think more. Deliver power, not noise. You just learned the foundation of smart communication, control. Because without control, every other communication skill falls apart. Now that you've mastered your words, it's time to master what's even more powerful than words themselves, silence. Chapter 2, Speak Less, Mean More. Most people talk too much. They talk to prove they know something. They talk to fill silence. They talk because they're uncomfortable with quiet. But here's the truth. The more you talk, the less impact your words have. The smartest communicators speak less and mean more. They understand that every unnecessary word weakens their authority. Every filler phrase drains power from their presence. You don't need to talk more to be respected. You need to speak intentionally. You need to make people feel that when you talk, it matters. That's the essence of speaking smart, the psychology of powerful communication in motion. Because the moment you stop chasing attention, your presence begins to command it. People confuse noise with influence. They think talking non-stop makes them look confident. But in reality, it makes them look insecure. Constant talking is a form of self-defense. It's a fear of silence. It's a way to fill the void, so you don't have to face it. But those who are truly powerful don't fear silence. They use it. They master it. They let silence build tension. They let it make others lean in. They let it do the heavy lifting. You have to understand, silence is not emptiness, it's focus. And in that focus, your message gains gravity. Imagine two speakers. The first speaks rapidly, filling every second with words. They rush. They ramble. They repeat themselves just to sound important. The second speaker pauses often. They use short sentences. They let silence hang in the air before their next point. Who do you listen to more? The second one, every time. Because silence pulls attention in. It says, what comes next will matter. That's psychology. That's control. That's the art of speaking less and meaning more. Here's a truth you must remember. When you talk too much, people stop hearing you. When you speak less, they start listening. Because scarcity creates value. The less you speak, the more valuable each word becomes. It's the same in business, leadership, and relationships. People who can communicate powerfully without saying much, they earn more respect. They look confident, wise, in control. When you're not rushing to fill space, you're telling the world, I'm comfortable with silence. I don't need approval. I'm in charge of the energy here. That's psychological dominance. Not aggression, presence. Let's talk about the psychology behind this. Humans are wired to interpret silence as authority. When someone pauses before speaking, we assume they're thinking deeply. We assume their words carry weight. But when someone speaks instantly, nonstop, or emotionally, we assume they're uncertain. That's why the calm communicator always wins. They trigger respect at a subconscious level. So the next time someone challenges you, argues with you, or tries to provoke you, don't rush to respond. Pause. Hold eye contact. Let silence stretch. Watch what happens. They'll start to doubt their own words. They'll start to feel the weight of your composure. And when you finally speak, your words will land with impact. That's the power of restraint. Let me give you a real-world example. In a heated business meeting, everyone's arguing over numbers. Each person tries to talk louder, to dominate the discussion. Then the CEO, calm and collected, raises his hand slightly. The room quiets. He waits. 5 seconds of total silence. Then he says just one line. We're not making decisions based on noise. We're making them based on clarity. No speech. No shouting. Just presence. That one sentence shifts the entire energy of the room. Why? Because silence created space. And space created impact. That's how great communicators lead. Through fewer, stronger words. You have to train yourself to resist the urge to overexplain. Stop trying to convince everyone. Stop trying to prove your intelligence through constant talking. When you speak less, you signal self-assurance. When you speak less, you build mystery. When you speak less, you give your message time to breathe. You have a choice. You can explain endlessly and lose authority. Or you can state your truth once and let silence prove it for you. That's the key. Silence proves what words can't. Let's make this practical. Here's how to speak less and mean more starting today. 1. Cut out filler language. No more like you know I guess. Every filler weakens the force of your sentence. Replace them with silence. 2. Say only what's necessary. Before you speak, ask, is this valuable? If not, don't say it. Brevity communicates clarity. Rambling communicates confusion. 3. Use short sentences. Long speeches lose focus. Short statements cut deep. Say it once. Say it clearly. Then stop. 4. Pause intentionally. Use silence as punctuation. Let your message land before you move on. That pause, that stillness, it's what turns your words into power. 5. Don't repeat for reassurance. Say it once with conviction. If you repeat, you dilute it. If you trust it, they'll believe it. That's how you become the person people remember, not because you said a lot, but because what you said mattered. You don't need to dominate conversations. You need to direct them. And you do that not by adding more words, but by removing the unnecessary ones. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the clearest. It's not about proving you're right. It's about projecting certainty. Every word you remove adds weight to what remains. Every pause adds power. Every moment of silence builds presence. The world today is drowning in noise. Everyone's talking. Few are thinking. Everyone's posting. Few are listening. So when you become the person who thinks before they speak, you immediately stand out. When others rush to react, you take your time. When others try to fill silence, you hold it. When others speak for attention, you speak for impact. That's how you flip the power dynamic. That's how you own the room, quietly. Because silence is not weakness. It's strategy. Silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you have too much power to waste on meaningless words. You don't need their permission to speak less. You don't need to apologize for thinking before responding. You don't need to fill space just to feel valuable. Your presence speaks louder than words. Your restraint communicates more than your reaction ever could. When you speak less, you conserve energy. When you speak less, you build curiosity. When you speak less, you amplify meaning. That's what separates reactive talkers from intentional communicators. So from this moment on, choose your words like a craftsman. Shape each one with precision. Deliver it with certainty. Then stop. Let silence do the rest. Let your presence say what your words no longer need to. Because true power doesn't need to announce itself. It simply exists. And the more you speak from that space, the quieter, more intentional, more disciplined you become, the more people will feel it. They'll hang on to every word. They'll respect your pauses. They'll remember your calm. Because you didn't speak to impress. You spoke to impact. And that's the secret. Speak less, mean more. You've learned the discipline of restraint, how silence amplifies your strength. Now, it's time to go deeper. Because words aren't just about what you say, they're about how you say them. Your tone is your hidden weapon. Chapter 3. Learn the psychology of tone. Your words are only 10% of communication. Let that sink in. It's not the words that pierce through the noise. It's your tone. Tone is emotion. Tone is dominance. Tone is energy. When you speak, people don't just hear what you say, they feel what you mean. They register the tension in your voice, the rhythm of your pauses, the conviction behind your sentences. That's the real conversation, the one happening beneath the words. You can say the same sentence in 10 different tones and get 10 completely different reactions. Say, "I'm fine," with a calm, grounded tone. You sound in control. Say, "I'm fine," with tension in your throat. You sound defensive. Say it with a relaxed rhythm. You sound confident. Say it too fast. You sound anxious. Same words. Different energy. That's the psychology of tone. You see, most people focus too much on what to say. They spend hours rehearsing words, memorizing lines, and scripting their responses. But communication isn't a script, it's a transfer of state. When your tone carries certainty, people feel it. When it carries insecurity, people smell it instantly. You can't fake it. You can't hide it. That's the key. You don't need perfect words. You need presence behind your words. You don't need a bigger vocabulary. You need control over your tone. Because tone is the bridge between your thoughts and another person's emotions. It tells people whether to trust you, follow you, or dismiss you. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who didn't talk much, but when they did, every word seemed to carry weight? They didn't rush. They didn't fill the silence with noise. They spoke with calm authority. That's tone discipline. Tone discipline means your energy matches your intention. You don't let your emotions hijack your delivery. You decide the emotion before you speak. That's what leaders do. That's what powerful communicators do. They don't react, they set the tone. Let me give you a real-world example. Imagine a manager addressing a team after a failed project. He says, "We didn't meet our targets. I'm disappointed." Now imagine two tones. He says it with a sharp, frustrated voice, tense, clipped, almost attacking. The team shuts down instantly. Everyone feels blamed, defensive, anxious. He says it with a firm, low, measured tone, steady, calm, but serious. The team feels guided, not attacked. They're motivated to fix it. Same words, different tone, different outcome. That's the psychology of tone. It can turn resistance into cooperation. Tone is emotional leadership. It's not about dominance, it's about control. Control over yourself first, then influence over others. When you raise your tone out of anger, you lose control. You hand over your power. When you lower your tone out of fear, you shrink your authority. You have a choice every time you speak. You can use your tone to attack, defend, or command respect. You can use your tone to divide or unite. That's the key. It's not what you say. It's how you say it that rewires the mind. Because tone triggers emotion, and emotion triggers memory. People won't remember every word you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. If your tone radiates calmness, people feel safe. If your tone radiates certainty, people follow. If your tone radiates chaos, people withdraw. You are constantly programming minds with your tone. You're telling people whether you're to be trusted, respected, or ignored. And it's not about volume. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. In fact, the calm tone carries the most power because it shows control. Controlled tone equals controlled presence. Here's what you must start doing. 1. Slow down your speech. The more rushed your tone, the weaker your authority. Calm pacing signals power. It says, "I'm not in a hurry to prove myself." 2. Control your breathing. Tension in your voice starts with tension in your chest. Breathe deeply before you speak. Power isn't forced, it's grounded. 3. Match your tone to your message. If you're giving reassurance, soften your tone. If you're setting boundaries, firm it. If you're teaching, steady it. If you're inspiring, raise it slightly with energy, but never desperation. 4. Practice emotional neutrality. Learn to speak with composure even when provoked. That's what separates professionals from amateurs, leaders from followers. Because when everyone else is loud, your calm tone cuts deeper. Here's the truth. People mirror your tone. Speak with panic, they panic. Speak with anger, they resist. Speak with calm authority, they align. Your tone regulates the emotional temperature of every conversation. That's real influence, not manipulation, but mastery. You don't need to yell to command respect. You just need consistency. A voice that doesn't shake under pressure. A tone that communicates, "I'm in control of myself and this moment." That's what people follow. So here's your assignment. For the next 24 hours, don't focus on your words. Focus only on your tone. Record yourself. Listen to how you sound when you explain, when you argue, when you make a request. Do you sound rushed? Defensive? Hesitant? Or do you sound calm, decisive, intentional? Fix your tone before you fix your script. Because the world doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you radiate. And your tone is your radiation. That's your emotional frequency. the invisible language that decides whether people trust you or tune you out. You have to train your tone like a weapon. Discipline it until it obeys your command. Because when your tone aligns with your purpose, your words become unstoppable. That's how great leaders, negotiators, and communicators operate. They use tone as strategy. They use silence as punctuation. They use presence as persuasion. You don't need their approval. You just need command over your delivery. It's not about speaking perfectly. It's about speaking powerfully. Remember this phrase and repeat it often. It's not what you say. It's how you say it that rewires the mind. Let that guide every conversation, every sentence, every moment you open your mouth. Your tone is your subconscious on display. And once you master that, words become secondary. You won't need to shout to be heard. You won't need to prove your point. People will just feel it. That's the ultimate power of communication, when your tone does the work for you. You've learned how tone rewires perception and emotion. Now, let's go deeper. Because once your tone carries control, your energy must carry confidence. You mastered tone. Now let's master presence. Chapter 4. Stop explaining yourself. There's a moment in every person's life when they realize this truth. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Not for your choices. Not for your silence. Not for your dreams. The moment you stop explaining yourself, you reclaim your power. Because explanation is often disguised as insecurity. It's the unconscious need to make people understand you, like you, or validate you. But here's the truth. Most people don't care to understand you. They care to control you. And every time you over-explain, you hand them that control. Think about how many times you've said things like, "I didn't mean it that way. I just wanted to make sure you're not mad. I'm sorry, I was just trying to help." You see what's happening? You're trying to manage someone else's emotions by justifying your actions. You're trying to win approval instead of standing on principle. And that's weakness disguised as kindness. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You don't need to be understood. You just need to be clear within yourself. Explaining yourself is an energy leak. Every time you justify your path, you give away your focus, your peace, your dominance. People who know their purpose don't explain, they act. You never see a lion explaining why it roared. You never see a storm apologizing for its thunder. Power doesn't explain. Power exists. The ones who talk the most about why they do what they do are usually the ones who don't believe in it themselves. Confidence doesn't need convincing. That's the psychology of silence. When you stop explaining, people start respecting. Let me make something clear. Stopping explanation doesn't mean you become rude or dismissive. It means you stop trying to make everyone comfortable with your truth. It means you stop bending your spine to fit inside their expectations. You have a right to your standards. You have a right to your peace. You have a right to walk away from what doesn't align with you, without delivering a speech about it. Because the moment you start explaining your standards, they start negotiating them. And that's how you lose power, slowly, quietly, in the form of a smile and a justification. Here's what most people don't realize. Every explanation sends a subconscious message that says, "I need your acceptance to feel okay." That's why manipulators love when you explain. They'll pretend not to understand, just to make you talk more. They'll keep questioning you, not to get clarity, but to make you defend yourself. Never defend your values. Never justify your decisions to people who didn't pay the price for them. You took the risk. You lived the pain. You earned the lesson. That's enough. If someone can't handle your boundaries, they can leave. If someone can't understand your silence, they don't deserve your story. Here's what you must start doing. 1. Practice saying less. When someone questions your decision, answer briefly. Say, "That's what I've decided." Say, "It's what feels right for me." Then stop talking. Let the silence sit. Silence makes people uncomfortable, but that's where power lives. 2. Replace justification with conviction. Stop saying "I'm sorry but," or "I just thought." Start saying "I decided," or "I prefer." Notice the difference. One seeks permission, the other asserts presence. 3. Get comfortable with being misunderstood. Not everyone will see your vision. That's fine. They're not supposed to. You don't owe them the emotional labor of convincing them. That's the discipline of self-respect. Let's take a real-world example. You decide to quit your job and start something of your own. Someone asks, "Why would you give up a stable paycheck?" Most people start defending, "I've been planning it for a while. I think it's a good opportunity. I'm trying to follow my passion." But the person doesn't actually want to understand. They want to judge. The powerful response? "Because I'm ready for what's next." Then you stop. No explanation. No validation. That one sentence carries strength. It signals self-trust. The more you explain, the smaller you sound. The less you explain, the stronger your presence feels. Because people don't respect explanations, they respect certainty. You have to remember this: clarity is internal. It's not something you broadcast, it's something you embody. When you explain too much, it means you're still seeking clarity through others. You're asking for emotional permission to live your truth. But no one's going to give you that permission. You have to take it. You have a choice. You can keep talking about what you believe, or you can live it so loudly that no explanation is needed. That's the real message. That's the power move. Here's what happens when you stop explaining. People test you less. They question you less. They start adjusting to you instead of you adjusting to them. Because silence signals boundaries. And boundaries signal value. The strongest people on earth are the ones who are okay being misunderstood for a while, because they know time will prove them right. They're not desperate to be seen as good, right, or polite. They're focused on being effective, free, and authentic. It's not about arrogance. It's about alignment. When you live aligned with your truth, explanations become unnecessary. You're no longer trying to sell your path to anyone. You're just walking it, with or without applause. And that's the kind of presence that shifts rooms. That's the kind of energy that says, "I don't talk to be approved. I talk to be clear." You don't owe people comfort. You owe yourself peace. That's the key. Let me tell you something. The people who truly respect you won't need an explanation. They'll sense your intent through your consistency. And the ones who demand constant explanations? They were never listening, they were judging. So stop performing for them. Stop trying to prove your worth through words. Your silence will speak louder than any speech ever could. You teach people how to treat you through how much you explain. If you explain too much, you teach them you can be questioned endlessly. If you stay firm, you teach them your boundaries are not negotiable. You don't need to say, "I hope you understand." You need to say, "This is my decision." And leave it there. Because every time you stop explaining, you grow stronger. Every time you hold your silence, your energy expands. Every time you resist the urge to justify, you reinforce your self-trust. That's how you build unshakable confidence, not by being understood, but by being unwavering. You don't need to make sense to everyone. You just need to make sense to yourself. Stop explaining. Start living. Stop talking. Start showing. Stop convincing. Start becoming. That's the mindset of power. That's the voice of a leader. You've learned how silence builds respect. Now it's time to go even deeper, into the art of control. Because when you stop explaining, you gain power. But when you master how you respond, you gain influence. You've built inner strength. Now let's use it. Chapter 5. Read the room before you speak. Every powerful communicator has one invisible skill. They can read the room before they speak. They observe. They listen. They study energy before they release words into it. Because here's the truth. Communication isn't about what you say first. It's about what you sense first. You can have the most intelligent message in the world, but if you deliver it at the wrong time, in the wrong tone, to the wrong audience, it dies on impact. That's the key. The most persuasive people aren't the ones who talk the loudest. They're the ones who wait, who feel the atmosphere, who sense emotions, who notice subtle cues that others ignore. They understand that every room has a rhythm. And if you speak against that rhythm, you lose control. Reading the room is about emotional intelligence in motion. It's the ability to walk into a situation, feel the tension, and instantly know whether to lead, listen, or hold silence. You have a choice every time you open your mouth, to add clarity or add noise, to elevate the energy or drain it. When you learn to read the room, you never have to chase attention. You command it, because your timing is perfect. Let me show you how this works in real life. Imagine a business meeting where everyone is tense. The air is heavy. The boss just delivered bad news. Then someone cracks a joke. It doesn't land. The room goes silent. Everyone shifts uncomfortably. That's a person who didn't read the room. They were focused on their own words, not the environment. Now imagine someone else in that same meeting. They wait. They breathe. They sense the discomfort. And when they finally speak, they say one clear, grounded line. We'll figure this out, one step at a time. Suddenly, the tension breaks. People nod. Calm returns. That's power. That's presence. That's the psychology of communication at its highest level. It's not about what they said, it's about when they said it, and why. Reading the room requires you to shift from ego to awareness. When you speak only to be heard, you miss everything happening around you. But when you observe before you speak, your words carry weight. You have to understand something. Every interaction is a field of energy. Every person in that field brings their emotions, expectations, and attention. If you're unaware of that field, you'll keep clashing with it. You'll talk too much. You'll talk too soon. And people will tune you out, not because you lack intelligence, but because you lack timing. The strongest communicators are emotional detectives. They watch the body language. They notice who's speaking less. They sense who feels threatened, who feels heard, and who's losing focus. Then they tailor their words accordingly. That's mastery. You have to learn to listen beyond the words. Listen to the pace of the room. Listen to the silence between conversations. Listen to the collective emotion. Are people anxious, inspired, defensive, tired? That tells you what the room needs. And when you know what people need, your message lands like truth, not noise. Because communication isn't about performance. It's about alignment. You don't force your words into a space. You fit them into the right emotional pocket. That's how you connect. That's how you lead. Let's talk about why most people fail to read the room. They're too self-focused. They're in their own heads, thinking about what to say next, how they look, how they sound. That's ego communication. It's not real connection. You can't read the room when you're obsessed with how the room sees you. The shift happens when you stop thinking, how do I sound? And start thinking, what's really happening here? That's the difference between being impressive and being effective. When you walk into a space, take a moment before speaking. Scan the energy. Feel it in your body. Are people open or closed off? Are they serious or relaxed? Are they silent because they respect you, or because they fear you? Awareness gives you control, and control gives you confidence. Let me give you another example. A strong leader walks into a heated discussion. People are talking over each other. Voices are sharp. Instead of jumping in to calm things down, the leader stays silent. They make eye contact with everyone. They let the noise settle. Then, when the room quiets itself, they speak in a steady, low tone. Let's get back to what matters. That one sentence, delivered after full observation, reclaims order instantly. Why? Because the timing was precise. They didn't fight chaos, they waited it out. That's the difference between reacting and reading. When you react, you become part of the noise. When you read, you rise above it. That's the power of restraint. That's the art of emotional control in communication. Now here's what you can start practicing. 1. Pause before you speak. Don't rush to fill silence. Take 2 seconds to scan the room. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but that pause gives your mind data, emotional data that guides your next move. 2. Match, then lead. When you enter a conversation, first match the energy slightly, then guide it upward. If people are low energy, speak calmly. Once you have their attention, elevate your tone. If they're too intense, lower yours to slow them down. That's leadership through calibration. 3. Watch reactions, not words. The real feedback isn't verbal, it's visual. Notice when people lean in or pull away. Notice when their eyes light up or fade. That's how you know if your words are landing or missing. Reading the room also protects your reputation. Because one wrong statement, said in the wrong context, can cost you credibility that took years to build. It's not about being cautious, it's about being aware. You can be bold and still read energy. You can be confident and still sense emotion. That balance, that discipline, is what separates amateurs from masters. You don't have to dominate every conversation. You have to direct it. And direction comes from awareness. Let's anchor this truth. It's not what you say. It's how you say it that rewires the mind. But it's even deeper than that. It's when you say it. It's who you say it to. It's why you said it in that moment. That's communication mastery. When you learn to read the room, your words no longer just fill air, they shift energy. You can walk into chaos and bring order. You can enter silence and spark motivation. You can say less but create more impact, because your timing is aligned with truth. That's what makes you unforgettable. So next time you walk into any room, slow down. Before speaking, observe. Before leading, listen. Before expressing, understand. Because when you read the room first, every word that follows becomes intentional, surgical, and powerful. You don't chase reactions, you shape them. You don't fight energy, you guide it. That's how you command presence without trying. That's how you influence without force. You've learned how to read the energy around you. Now it's time to master the energy within you. Because your voice can't influence others until it commands you. You've learned awareness. Now let's move into authority. Chapter 6. The Power of Strategic Pauses. Powerful communication isn't about talking more. It's about knowing when not to talk. The pause, silence in motion, is the most underused weapon in human communication. It's what separates amateurs from professionals, talkers from leaders, noise from influence. When you pause strategically, you do 3 things. You create anticipation. You command attention. And you control emotion. That's the key. You can say fewer words and create more impact if you master the art of the pause. Let's start with this truth. Most people fear silence. They rush to fill every gap with words because they mistake talking for value. But the best communicators? They use silence like punctuation. They let their words breathe. They make every statement land. You have to train yourself to be comfortable with that silence. Because the pause isn't empty, it's charged. It gives the listener time to absorb your message. It gives your presence time to expand in the room. It gives you time to think instead of react. That's how you speak smart. You don't just say what's right. You say it at the right pace. When you pause, you do something most people don't expect. You make others lean in. They wonder what's coming next. They wait for your next word. And in that waiting, you have their full attention. That's not weakness. That's control. Let's be clear. Control isn't about dominating people. It's about directing focus. And silence directs focus better than any speech ever could. That's why the best leaders, the best speakers, the best negotiators, pause on purpose. They don't rush their sentences. They don't compete for airtime. They own the silence in between their words. Think about a courtroom. When a great lawyer delivers a key argument, they don't rush through it. They say the most important line, and then pause. Because they know the silence afterward is where the words sink in. Same in business, same in leadership, same in life. Every pause is a form of punctuation. It's your period, your comma, your exclamation mark. Without it, everything you say becomes a blur of sound. But with it, your message becomes sharp, deliberate, powerful. Here's what you need to understand. The pause gives your words gravity. Without pauses, your message sounds frantic. With pauses, your message feels confident. When you rush, you sound unsure. When you pause, you sound composed. Because calmness signals control. And control builds credibility. You can literally change how people perceive you just by controlling your pace. That's not a trick. That's psychology. Let me show you how it works in a real-world moment. Imagine you're giving a presentation. You say, "Our company needs to adapt fast because we're falling behind competitors." Then you pause. You look at the audience. You let silence fill the room. Then you say slowly, "But if we act now, this can become our turning point." That pause before the second sentence gives your words power. It makes people feel the contrast between fear and hope. It gives the message emotional weight. Now imagine saying that same thing with no pause. It would sound rushed, forgettable. That's what most people do. They flatten their impact with speed. The pause adds drama. And drama creates memory. Here's another truth. Pausing shows emotional maturity. It means you don't react out of impulse. You respond out of awareness. When someone insults you, pause before replying. When someone challenges you, pause before explaining. When someone asks something you weren't prepared for, pause before answering. That pause buys you time to think. And in that time, you regain control of the conversation. That's the difference between a reactive person and a composed one. The reactive person blurts. The composed person breathes. And the composed person always wins. Because composure is power. You have a choice every time you speak. You can chase approval with fast words, or build authority with slow confidence. That's the discipline of the strategic pause. Every time you pause, you communicate, "I'm in control. I'm not desperate. I'm choosing my words." That level of self-control makes people trust you more. Because people trust those who don't rush. In a world of constant noise, calm is magnetic. That's why silence isn't weakness, it's weaponry. Here's what you can start practicing today. 1. Slow down your speech by 10%. Literally, take more air between sentences. It'll feel unnatural at first, but it'll make your voice sound more grounded. 2. Insert a 1-second pause after every powerful point. Let the silence emphasize your message. That moment of stillness is where persuasion happens. 3. Use pauses before delivering key statements. This builds anticipation. When you hold silence, the listener's brain leans forward, preparing to absorb. That's when your next sentence hits like truth. The strategic pause isn't just about speaking, it's about emotional control. Because silence is emotional regulation in real time. It's your way of saying, "I decide the rhythm. I decide when the next move happens. I'm not reacting, I'm responding." That's leadership energy. And people feel it instantly. They feel your calm. They feel your certainty. They feel your presence. Because silence, when held with intention, radiates confidence. Think about the greatest speakers: Martin Luther King Jr., Steve Jobs, Barack Obama. They all mastered the art of pacing. They weren't fast talkers. They were deliberate. Every pause carried weight. Every silence made people listen harder. They didn't fill space with sound. They filled it with meaning. That's what makes communication powerful. It's not about speaking perfectly. It's about speaking purposefully. When you learn to use silence strategically, your words start working for you instead of against you. You'll find people start reacting differently. They'll stop interrupting. They'll start waiting for your point. They'll take your words more seriously, because you do. And that's how influence begins. You don't need a louder voice. You need a stronger presence. And presence isn't created by talking non-stop. It's created by mastering rhythm, the rise and fall, the sound and silence. That's communication intelligence. That's mental toughness in verbal form. You control the air between words, and in that air, people feel your power. Remember this: every silence is a statement. Every pause is a position. Every breath is a boundary. When you speak less but pause with purpose, you stop sounding like everyone else, and start sounding like someone who knows exactly who they are. That's what influence sounds like. That's what leadership feels like. It's not about saying more. It's about making what you say matter. Master the pause, and you'll master persuasion. Master silence, and you'll master respect. Because people don't remember every word you speak. They remember how your words felt. And silence is what gives those words feeling. You've learned how to read the room. Now you've learned how to control it, with rhythm, with timing, with silence. Next, it's time to take that calm control even deeper. To learn how to make people feel your authority before you even open your mouth. You've mastered silence. Now, let's talk about presence. Chapter 7. Emotion is the hidden language. Most people think communication is about words. It's not. It's about emotion. Emotion is the hidden language that people actually listen to. Your words may be perfect, your facts may be flawless, but if your emotional delivery is off, your message is dead on arrival. You've seen it before. Someone speaks with passion, and suddenly the whole room leans in. Someone else uses the same words, but flatly, and nobody cares. It's not what they said. It's how they made people feel. That's the secret. When you speak, you're not transferring information, you're transferring emotion. You're sending signals: confidence, fear, calm, chaos, certainty, insecurity. People don't react to your logic, they react to your emotional state. That's the hidden code of human influence. Think about this carefully. When a leader speaks in chaos, people panic. When that same leader speaks with calm conviction, people stabilize. When a negotiator stays emotionally steady, the other side eventually lowers their guard. That's not by accident. That's emotional strategy. You have to learn how to speak emotion fluently. Not through overreaction, not through fake enthusiasm, but through intentional emotional presence. It starts with awareness, because you can't control what you can't feel. Before you open your mouth, ask yourself, what emotion am I about to communicate? Are you speaking from frustration? From insecurity? Or from clarity and authority? Because no matter how well you hide it, people sense it. They don't hear your words, they feel your state. That's why your emotional tone matters more than your sentences. Your tone tells people how to respond to you. Your tone tells people whether to respect you or dismiss you. Your tone tells people if they can trust you or not. So you must learn emotional control. You can't afford to let temporary emotions sabotage your message. You can't afford to speak from weakness and expect power in return. Control your internal state first, then your external communication will carry authority naturally. Here's the truth: people buy emotion first, then justify it with logic later. That's how persuasion works. You think you're convincing people with reasons, but what actually moves them is emotional alignment. They feel your certainty. They feel your calm. They feel your conviction. And once they feel it, they start believing it. That's the key. You want people to feel your clarity, your presence, your belief. You can't fake that. You must build it internally. You must become emotionally congruent, meaning your energy, tone, and message all point in the same direction. If you say, "I believe in this," but your voice shakes, no one will believe you. If you say, "I'm fine," but your tone sounds uncertain, everyone knows you're not. That's because emotion breaks through every disguise. It's the hidden frequency that carries the truth beneath your words. So how do you master emotional communication? You start by mastering your state. You ground yourself before you speak. Take a breath. Drop your shoulders. Feel your power return to your center. Because calmness is contagious, but so is chaos. And the room will always mirror your emotional vibration. Want people to listen? Speak from calm authority. Want people to take action? Speak with conviction, not desperation. Want people to trust you? Speak with emotional honesty, not fake enthusiasm. When you control your emotional tone, you become magnetic. Your words may be few, but they hit deep. People won't just hear you, they'll feel you. And feeling creates connection. Connection builds influence. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine a team meeting gone wrong. Everyone's arguing, voices are high, chaos is building. Then one person stands up and says, quietly but firmly, "Let's stop for a moment." Their tone is calm, steady, grounded. In that instant, the energy shifts. People stop talking. Why? Because emotional authority overrides verbal noise. You didn't need to shout. You didn't need to dominate. You just spoke from centered emotion. That's the difference between reaction and influence. The world doesn't respond to noise. It responds to energy. When your emotional energy is strong and centered, your presence commands respect. When it's scattered or insecure, your message loses power before it even leaves your mouth. You have to become the emotional thermostat, not the emotional thermometer. Don't reflect the room. Set the temperature of the room. That's what great communicators do. That's what powerful leaders do. And here's the paradox. You don't gain emotional control by suppressing your feelings. You gain it by understanding them. You can't master emotion by ignoring it. You master it by directing it. So don't aim to be emotionless. Aim to be emotionally intelligent. Feel deeply, but choose what you project. That's real control. That's real communication. Remember this phrase, it's not what you say. It's how you say it that rewires the mind. Because emotion doesn't just change how others perceive you, it changes how they think. Your tone can disarm resistance. Your calmness can neutralize aggression. Your confidence can create belief in others who don't yet believe in themselves. That's power. And it's a power you build, not borrow. You build it through awareness. You build it through practice. You build it through emotional discipline. When you understand the hidden language of emotion, you stop speaking to ears and start speaking to hearts. And that's where true influence begins. You have a choice. You can keep speaking from chaos and wondering why people don't respond. Or you can learn the hidden language that runs the world, emotional tone. Because once you master that, every conversation shifts in your favor. Every room feels your presence before you speak. When you master emotion, you master communication. And when you master communication, you master influence. You've learned to feel before you speak. Now, let's move to the next step, how to command attention without saying a word. Chapter 8. Influence through empathy. Empathy isn't weakness. It's intelligence. It's not about being soft, it's about being strategic. Because the person who understands emotion holds the power to move it. And that's what influence really is, the ability to move emotion in others. Most people think empathy means agreeing with everyone. It doesn't. Empathy means understanding people so deeply that you know exactly how to reach them. You can read their state. You can sense their resistance. You can see what they need before they say it. That's the advantage of emotional awareness. That's the power of real connection. When you can step into someone's perspective, without losing your own, you become dangerous in the best way. You can influence without pressure. You can persuade without manipulation. You can lead without shouting. Because empathy gives you insight. And insight gives you leverage. You've probably noticed it. People don't listen to facts, they listen to feeling. If someone doesn't feel seen, they stop hearing you. If they don't feel understood, they'll resist even your best logic. That's human nature. People follow those who make them feel safe to listen. So when you speak, don't just focus on what you want to say. Focus on how they need to hear it. Influence begins not with your mouth, but with your awareness. Before every conversation, pause. Ask yourself, what's this person feeling right now? What's driving their reaction? What do they need to feel to move forward? It's not about reading minds, it's about reading energy. Because emotion always leaks through tone, posture, silence, hesitation. If you learn to see it, you'll always know what's really happening beneath the words. Let's take an example. A team member messes up. You're angry. You want to confront them. Most people would attack. Why did you do that? You weren't paying attention. The result? The person shuts down, becomes defensive, and nothing changes. But the emotionally intelligent communicator pauses. They start with empathy, not accusation. I know you were under pressure. Walk me through what happened. Now the other person's guard drops. They speak honestly. You learn the truth. And your influence deepens, not because you were nice, but because you were wise. That's empathy in power form. It disarms resistance. It opens doors. It earns trust. Empathy doesn't mean you absorb other people's emotions. It means you observe them without losing control of your own. That's the discipline most people miss. They feel someone's energy and instantly react to it. If the other person is angry, they mirror anger. If the other person is sad, they become emotional too. But influence through empathy means staying calm in the storm. You understand their emotion, but you don't become it. You use that understanding to guide your tone, your pace, your words. When they're defensive, you lower your intensity. When they're lost, you speak with clarity. When they're hurt, you use stillness and patience. Every choice becomes intentional, not reactive. That's the key. You don't need to dominate. You need to connect. And connection is the shortcut to influence. Empathy gives you precision. Without it, you're shooting blind, throwing words, hoping something lands. With it, you're strategic. You speak exactly what the moment requires. If someone feels unseen, your empathy tells you, give them recognition. If someone feels fearful, your empathy tells you, give them safety. If someone feels angry, your empathy tells you, don't challenge, listen first. Every emotional need becomes a clue, not an obstacle. That's why the best communicators are the best listeners. They listen not just to words, but to energy. They listen to pauses, to changes in breathing, to shifts in tone. They're not just hearing, they're reading the full emotional map. And when you understand the map, you can guide the direction. That's what influence truly is. People will never forget how you make them feel. They might forget your message. They might forget your name. But they'll always remember the energy you brought into the room. Empathy shapes that energy. You don't need to perform empathy. You need to feel it. Because people can sense fake kindness instantly. They can feel when you're pretending to care. But when your concern is real, when your intention is pure, they open up. That's when trust forms. And trust is the foundation of influence. But here's the warning. Empathy without boundaries becomes manipulation of yourself. You can't carry everyone's emotion. You can't fix everyone's pain. Your job isn't to absorb their chaos. It's to understand it and help redirect it. So you must stay emotionally grounded. Your empathy is your radar, not your anchor. It tells you what's happening around you, but you decide where to move. Because influence through empathy doesn't come from losing yourself in others. It comes from understanding others while staying rooted in your own power. That's leadership. That's mastery. Real power comes from emotional awareness paired with emotional stability. One without the other is useless. Awareness without stability makes you a sponge, soaking up everyone's feelings until you collapse. Stability without awareness makes you cold. People won't connect, they won't trust. You need both. Empathy with control. Awareness with authority. That's how you make people feel seen, and still lead them forward. So the next time you enter a conversation, don't rush to speak. Listen with your entire being. Watch their eyes. Feel their energy. Let them reveal who they are through silence, not just words. When you finally speak, you'll know exactly what to say, because empathy already told you. Influence through empathy isn't about speaking louder. It's about speaking right. It's about understanding what people need before they even realize it. It's about connecting from the heart, while guiding from the mind. That's emotional mastery. That's quiet leadership. And that's how real influence begins, not through dominance, but through understanding. You've learned to connect through empathy. Now, it's time to build the invisible power that turns connection into command. Chapter 9. Speak like you already have authority. Authority doesn't start when people respect you. It starts when you respect yourself. When you speak like you already have authority, the world adjusts to your tone. You don't wait for permission to be confident. You decide to be. You don't earn power by being loud. You earn it by being certain. You see, authority isn't about your title, your status, or your audience size. It's about your presence. It's how you walk into a room, how you pause before you speak, how you use silence as a tool instead of a gap. People don't follow those who know everything. They follow those who believe in what they say. That's the truth. Authority is an energy. And the moment you own your words, that energy transfers to everyone around you. Most people speak to be accepted. They chase approval in every sentence. They soften their tone, overexplain, and fill silence because they're afraid of judgment. But the problem is, every time you chase approval, you lose respect. You teach people not to take you seriously. You don't need to sound like anyone else. You don't need to prove that you belong in the conversation. You need to own your space. When you speak like you already have authority, your energy says, I know what I'm talking about. Not arrogantly, but calmly. Not emotionally, but confidently. That's the difference between talking and commanding attention. Let's make something clear. Authority isn't volume. It's presence. There's a big difference between being loud and being powerful. Loud people try to convince. Powerful people don't have to. When you speak slowly, clearly, and with conviction, people lean in. When you pause before answering, you show that your words are worth waiting for. When you look someone in the eye without flinching, you project certainty. That's how real authority sounds. You don't rush to fill every silence. You use it. You don't rush to respond. You assess. You don't seek validation. You decide. Every word, every gesture, every moment, intentional. Think about great leaders. They don't argue. They don't raise their voice to win respect. They speak with calm precision and firm belief. Imagine this: a room is in chaos, everyone shouting, everyone trying to prove their point. Then one calm voice cuts through the noise. Not loud, not rushed, just controlled. And instantly, the room quiets. That's not an accident. That's psychological authority. When you master your energy, you master the room. Because here's the truth: people don't follow words, they follow energy. They listen not because of what you say, but because of how you say it. So, how do you develop that authority? It starts with the inner voice. Because your outer voice is just a reflection of your internal belief. When you speak, your subconscious broadcasts everything: your confidence, your fear, your uncertainty. People can sense it. If you don't believe in your words, no one else will. So before you open your mouth, you must convince yourself. You have to decide, what I'm saying matters. You have to decide, my words have weight. You have to decide, I don't need to prove myself, I just need to speak from truth. That's the foundation of authority. It starts before sound. It starts with conviction. Now, let's talk about tone. Your tone communicates far more than your words ever will. Authority lives in your tone. It's the subtle balance between calm and command. A rushed tone signals insecurity. A flat tone signals disinterest. A confident tone, steady, low, and deliberate, signals control. That's the key: control. Control your tone, control the energy. Control the energy, control the outcome. You have a choice in every interaction: react or lead. When you lead with tone, others follow naturally. Here's a real-world example. A young manager in a corporate meeting gets challenged by a senior executive. The old him would have panicked, rushed his words, defended himself, lost control. But now, he pauses. He breathes. He lowers his tone slightly and says, "That's a fair question. Here's how I see it." He doesn't fight for dominance, he projects it. And the moment he does, the room listens differently. Respect is earned through composure, not through noise. That's what it means to speak like you already have authority. Remember this: people believe what you believe. If you sound uncertain, they'll doubt you. If you sound convinced, they'll follow you, even if they don't fully understand why. Confidence is contagious. Authority spreads through belief. You have to train yourself to speak from stability, not emotion. Because emotion reacts. Authority decides. It's not about being right, it's about being rooted. Every time you speak with calm confidence, you strengthen your reputation. Every time you react emotionally, you weaken it. So choose your tone. Choose your energy. That's your power. When you start speaking with authority, people notice. They start listening more carefully. They stop interrupting you. They mirror your pace. Why? Because your energy sets the rhythm of the conversation. Authority is leadership in sound form. But remember, authority doesn't mean dominance. You're not here to intimidate. You're here to inspire clarity, confidence, and respect. You don't force people to listen, you make them want to. Speaking like you already have authority means being the calmest voice in the room. It means knowing that silence is not weakness, it's power. It means being unshaken when others are emotional. It means owning your truth even when others doubt it. That's what true authority feels like. You don't chase attention. You attract it. You don't prove yourself. You embody it. You have a choice. Every time you open your mouth, you can sound like someone seeking validation, or someone creating impact. It's not about ego. It's about energy. It's not about dominance. It's about direction. When you speak from confidence, you lead. When you speak from insecurity, you follow. You decide which one you'll be. So, from this moment forward, practice authority in every word. Speak slowly. Pause often. Listen deeply. And when you finally speak, make it count. Because authority doesn't wait to be recognized. It reveals itself. You've learned to project authority through your words. Now it's time to go even deeper, into the invisible art that makes people trust and follow you effortlessly. Chapter 10. Master the Art of Psychological Influence. Influence isn't luck. It's not manipulation. It's not about charm or perfect words. It's about understanding how the human mind responds to emotion, energy, and certainty. When you master the art of psychological influence, you no longer chase agreement, you create it. You don't force people to believe you, you make them feel it's their own idea. That's real power. The quiet kind. The subtle kind. The kind that doesn't shout, doesn't beg, doesn't convince. It just moves people. Because here's the truth. People are not logical first. They are emotional first. You can present all the right facts, all the right arguments, and still lose influence if your energy feels wrong. The smartest communicators know this. The mind follows the emotion, and the logic follows later. That's the psychology of influence. And once you understand it, you'll never speak the same way again. Let's start here. When you speak, people aren't hearing only your words. They're feeling your intention. They're scanning for confidence, for certainty, for safety. They're not asking, is this person right? They're asking, do I trust this person? Do I feel seen, heard, respected? That's the emotional filter everyone uses. And it's the first test you either pass or fail in every conversation. So before you try to convince someone, check your energy. If you sound desperate, they'll resist. If you sound tense, they'll doubt you. If you sound calm and certain, they'll lean in. Because emotional control creates psychological influence. People follow those who seem emotionally grounded when everything else feels uncertain. That's why your tone, your composure, your pacing, they all matter more than the words themselves. Now, let's talk about how influence works beneath the surface. It's not about overpowering someone's will, it's about guiding their perception. It's about planting seeds that grow into belief. Here's how it works. Step 1, you make them feel seen. Step 2, you make them feel safe. Step 3, you make them feel certain. When someone feels seen, safe, and certain, their mind opens. Their guard drops. Their defenses soften. And at that moment, your words begin to shape their thoughts. That's influence. Quiet. Invisible. But incredibly powerful. Here's the secret. You influence people most when you stop trying to influence them. When you shift from manipulation to understanding. When you focus not on your outcome, but on their state of mind. Because the mind resists what feels forced. But it absorbs what feels natural. So instead of telling people what to do, lead them to discover it. Instead of proving your point, make them realize it. You do this through questions, stories, and emotional reflection. Ask questions that make people think differently. Share stories that let them see themselves in the lesson. Mirror their emotions, then redirect them. That's the art. That's how leaders influence nations, movements, and hearts. Let's look at a real example. Imagine a heated conversation with someone who refuses to listen. Most people argue louder. They throw logic like a weapon. But the influential communicator stays calm. Instead of fighting, they reflect, I can see this issue really matters to you. Instantly, tension drops. Why? Because empathy disarms defensiveness. Then they follow with clarity, let's look at this from a different angle. Now the energy shifts. The person starts listening. They feel understood. They feel safe. And when people feel safe, they open their minds. That psychological influence in motion, the power to redirect emotion without confrontation. Here's another truth. Repetition creates belief. The human brain learns through patterns. If someone hears an idea enough times, from a place of calm authority, it becomes truth in their subconscious. So repeat your key message, not forcefully, but rhythmically. Like waves shaping stone. Subtle. Consistent. Powerful. That's why advertisers repeat slogans. That's why great speakers repeat themes. That's why leaders repeat vision statements. Repetition wires the message into the mind. But here's the key, your repetition must feel intentional, not desperate. When you say it calmly, with conviction, it sounds like truth. When you repeat it with tension, it sounds like persuasion. The difference is energy. Another secret of influence, contrast. Contrast creates clarity. When you highlight opposites, light and dark, pain and relief, struggle and success, people feel the shift more deeply. For example, it's not about talking more, it's about talking right. It's not about emotion, it's about control. It's not about proving your point, it's about guiding their mind. That's contrast in speech, and it makes ideas unforgettable. Because the brain remembers opposites. It remembers tension and release. It remembers stories that move between struggle and breakthrough. Use contrast. It's one of your most powerful tools in psychological communication. Now, let's talk about emotional pacing. Every great communicator knows when to slow down, when to pause, and when to intensify. You can't speak in one tone all the time. Monotony kills influence. Instead, you lead people through emotional rhythm. Calm, intensity, calm again. This mirrors life. This mirrors trust. It feels natural. And the more natural your rhythm, the more people connect to it subconsciously. That's why storytelling works. It moves people emotionally, from problem to resolution, from confusion to clarity. You're not just delivering words, you're creating an experience. But remember, influence is never about control over others. It's about control over yourself. Because if you can't control your emotions, your tone, or your presence, you lose power instantly. People sense instability like radar. The moment your energy wavers, they pull away. So train your calm. Train your silence. Train your patience. Influence begins where reactivity ends. You have a choice. Every conversation is a test. Will you react emotionally, or will you guide intentionally? That choice defines your impact. When you master psychological influence, you stop trying to win people. You start shaping reality with your presence. You speak once, and it echoes. You pause, and people lean in. You express certainty, and they feel it without question. That's how real influence works. It's invisible. It's emotional. It's strategic. You don't force it. You embody it. So here's your challenge. Stop focusing on what to say next. Start focusing on how people feel when you say it. Master emotional awareness. Speak with calm conviction. Repeat your truth until it becomes a fact in their mind. Because the world doesn't follow noise, it follows energy. And when your energy is grounded, confident, and intentional, your words will shape reality itself. That's the art of psychological influence. It's not manipulation. It's mastery. It's the ultimate form of communication, where every word, every tone, every pause changes the atmosphere. You've now learned how to speak smart, to control your words, your tone, your pauses, and your emotional intelligence. You've learned the psychology behind true influence. Now it's time to live it. Don't wait for authority. Don't wait for respect. Speak it. Feel it. Become it. Because once your mind and words align, the world will start listening. End of book. Everything you say is either building your power or wasting it. Every tone, every pause, every sentence is a signal of how much control you have over yourself. The smartest people don't talk to fill silence. They talk to shape thought. They don't speak fast. They speak with precision. They don't seek to impress. They seek to impact. You've learned the psychology behind communication. Now apply it relentlessly. Speak less, mean more. Speak calm, not loud. Speak with purpose, not approval. Because once your words align with your mind, people will listen, even when you say nothing. Now it's your turn. Master your words, and you'll master your world.